Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. I'm Kim Tami in Seoul. Let's begin with the top stories this week. Former President Donald Trump was elected as the 47th President of the United States, securing his second presidency. President Yoon Suk-yeol and Trump spoke on the phone following the announcement, agreeing to meet at an early date. The U.S. Fed lowered its key interest rate again by a quarter percentage point, now bringing the target rate to the 4.5% to 4.75% range. President Yoon Suk-yeol offered an apology to the nation on Thursday for causing concerns to the public over controversies involving the First Lady and a political consultant, and he promised to revamp state affairs to meet public expectations. Donald Trump has officially become the next U.S. president, defeating Vice President Kamala Harris to retake the Oval Office. Harris conceded the election, committing to peaceful transfer of power. Our foreign affairs correspondent Peunji starts us off.
Trump has been declared the official winner and the 47th president of the United States, after gaining more than the 270 electoral votes needed to win this year's presidential election. Races haven't been called yet in Nevada and Arizona, but he is in the lead in both states, meaning that he has practically won in all 7 key battleground states. Those include Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, grouped as blue wall states that were once known for their strong Democratic support.
But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president.
Meanwhile, Harris delivered a concession speech, telling supporters that they must accept the results, while adding that she spoke with Trump and congratulated him on his victory.
A fundamental principle of American democracy is that when we lose an election, we accept the results. That principle, as much as any other, distinguishes democracy from monarchy or tyranny.
While the count continues in some states, voter turnout in this year's presidential election is expected to be close to the record high set in 2020. According to a Washington Post analysis of data from the Associated Press and the University of Florida Election Lab, as of 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, voter turnout for this election stood at 65%. This year's figure is not expected to surpass the record of 66% reached 4 years ago, but it is said to be the second highest in the past century. Since the U.S. electoral system is based on indirect voting, it will still take weeks before the tallies are officially confirmed. The states will certify their results, and each state's executive, the governor in most cases, will sign certificates on December 11th that formally allocate the state's electors to the winning candidate. Then, on the first Tuesday after the second Wednesday in December, which falls on December 17th this year, the electors will meet and cast their votes. The electoral votes will be counted on January 6th, and President-elect Trump will officially be sworn in on Inauguration Day, on January 20th. Peunji, Arirang News.
From an entrepreneur and TV show host to a re-elected president, Donald Trump has come a long way to stand where he is today. Our Chunhyangi tells us more.
President-elect Donald Trump was born in 1946 in New York to a real estate mogul father. He graduated from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School and followed his father's path to become a businessman. Trump rose to fame through the reality TV show The Apprentice, where the catchphrase, "You're fired," became popular.
Kamala, you're fired. Get out, get out. You're fired.
Trump was interested in running as the Reform Party nominee, but lost in the party's presidential primaries in 2000. In 2016, he ran for president as a Republican candidate, beating Democrat nominee Hillary Clinton to become the 45th president of the U.S. During his presidency, his America First policies were reflected in trade wars with China, strict immigration measures, and business-friendly actions such as tax cuts and easing government regulation. In 2020, Trump ran for re-election with the slogan "Keep America Great," but lost to current President Joe Biden. After the loss, he refused to accept the results and faced charges for allegedly inciting the 2021 January 6th Capitol riot. Trump became the first president in the U.S. to be impeached by the House twice and also the first U.S. leader to be tried for impeachment by the Senate after leaving office. He currently faces 4 criminal indictments with outcomes still pending. Despite many twists and turns, Trump ran for president again this year, reviving his 2016 slogan, "Make America Great Again." During a rally in Pennsylvania in July, he was wounded in the ear during an assassination attempt, a moment that quickly became a symbol of solidarity for many of his supporters and a grim reminder of political violence in the U.S.
This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again.
In securing a second term, Trump became the oldest president at age 78 and the second in U.S. history to lose re-election and later win a second term. 신하영, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump's re-election this week caused ripples around the world, including in South Korea, a close ally of the United States. Now, the Yoon Suk-yeol administration has acted swiftly to cooperate with the once again president-elect. We have our correspondent Oh Soo-young in studio with us to talk about what's ahead for South Korea-U.S. relations and their partnership with Japan. Hi, Soo-young. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you again, Tammy.
So, Soo-young, let's begin with the conversation between Trump and Yoon and Trump over the phone, their first encounter over the phone. Was this a positive start to the relationship?
I would definitely say so, Tammy. I mean, President Yoon was one of the first world leaders to post on social media his congratulations to the U.S. president-elect. Then around half a day later, the two spoke on the phone for about 12 minutes, briefly touching upon the most important issues for the allies. On North Korea's security threat to the Indo-Pacific and the world, and its deployment of troops to aid Russia's war against Ukraine, Yoon and Trump exchanged assessments of the ongoing developments and expressed mutual concern over the situation. They also touched on North Korea's evolving nuclear capabilities and provocations, as well as the trilateral cooperation between South Korea, the United States and Japan. Now, particularly on trilateral cooperation, Yoon noted their relations had evolved, leading to the establishment of the trilateral Camp David framework. Now, he said this is in part due to Trump's first term, which enabled the trilateral cooperation. This comes amid concern in Seoul and Washington that a second Trump presidency would water down the efforts made by the Biden administration to institutionalize the agreements reached at the Camp David summit in August last year. And under the Camp David spirit and principles, the three sides had agreed to hold annual top-level meetings, jointly deter North Korea's nuclear and missile threat, address regional and economic security issues, as well as collaborate on cutting-edge technologies. As Seoul and Washington upgraded their ties to a global comprehensive strategic alliance last year, Yoon told Trump that he hoped the South Korea-US alliance would continue as a close partnership spanning security, economy and all other areas. Trump agreed, saying that he hopes to continue the strong cooperation between their two countries. The U.S. president-elect added that he heard much about the South Korean president's leadership and mentioned that the U.S. shipbuilding industry requires South Korea's support and cooperation.
So he talked about, say, naval vessels, U.S. naval vessels, which need something called MRO service from Korea. That is to say, maintenance, repair service from Korea. That, in fact, is something we've been talking about for a long, long time. But at the same time, I was very positively impressed that President Trump, in fact, understands about it, why we need cooperation in that area as well.
The two plan to meet soon to discuss bilateral issues in more detail. A Seoul presidential official told reporters in Seoul that Trump showed his desire to meet as soon as possible. So, yeah, Tammy, I would call that a positive start.
Soo-young, still, there are concerns about bilateral relations, considering Trump's first term was a challenging time for the previous South Korean government.
That's right. So that really is the lingering question for observers, experts, citizens, most people, right? What will be the future of South Korea-US relations under Trump, as well as the trilateral cooperation with Japan? Now, Trump's trademark diplomacy is to disregard alliances and ask them to pay more for security and also renegotiate trade deals. He's not been a fan of multilateralism either, pulling out of international regimes and preferring to deal with countries on a bilateral basis. Still, there's hope that the incoming administration will understand the necessity of working with countries like South Korea and Japan.
Given South Korea's strategic importance in East Asia, it has become an indispensable partner for the US and Japan in maintaining regional stability and countering threats from China and North Korea. South Korea plays a vital role, especially in intelligence on North Korea, and its strengths in semiconductors and military capabilities make it a crucial partner. The US and Japan heavily rely on South Korea's cooperation in these areas, particularly in securing stable supply chains and leveraging South Korea's technological advances in semiconductors.
Another factor to take into account is that relations between South Korea and Japan are vastly different from what they were during Trump's first term under the previous Abe and Moon administrations. With their diplomatic and trade ties normalized and the recognition that they need to work together on both present and future challenges, the two East Asian neighbours will continue to support trilateral cooperation, as Yoon and Ashiba agreed to do in early October.
But the current leaderships in both those capitals, in Seoul and Tokyo, I think are very firmly committed to this path going forward. And so I hope that they will do the necessary in terms of continuing to be open to each other, supportive of each other, and will cherish what has been built over these past 4 years. And as I said, will make the case very strongly to Washington.
So we are cautiously optimistic.
Yes, I mean, during a press conference on Thursday, President Yoon actually said that he's not worried about working with a second Trump administration. He said he's been engaging with figures close to Trump, such as his former officials like Mike Pompeo and Robert O'Brien, and was assured by them, and among others, that the incoming president's policies would avoid harming South Korea's business interests. In fact, the South Korean leader said that there could be great chemistry between him and President Trump. And in fact, during their phone call, they both showed enthusiasm on meeting as soon as possible in person to discuss these bilateral issues at hand. So I suppose we might see if they would hit it off during the first meeting.
All right, Soo-young, thank you so much for the report today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Also on the election day, Senate elections took place in the U.S. There, Democrat Andy Kim has become the first Korean-American senator. Kim was first elected to Congress in 2018 and will now become one of the 3 Asian-American senators in office. Kim was born and raised in America and calls himself a product of New Jersey public schools. He also worked at the Pentagon and in Afghanistan as a civilian advisor to the military. The son of Korean immigrants, Andy Kim has achieved the American dream, becoming not only New Jersey's first Korean-American senator, but the first from the community on the entire East Coast. New Jersey is a state where Asian Americans are the fast-growing demographic, as the number nearly doubled from 2000 to 2022. Speaking at a press conference in the hotel he and his family lived out of when they first moved to New Jersey, Kim expressed a profound humility as he prepares to take on a role only around 2,000 Americans have served throughout history. He pledged to repair broken politics and emphasized the first-of-its-kind opportunity after 120 years of Korean immigration to America. President Yoon Suk-yeol addressed the nation in a televised speech on Thursday, which began with an apology for causing public concerns, especially involving the First Lady and a political consultant. Now, the president denied any wrongdoing regarding recent political allegations and vowed to revamp state affairs. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon has the details.
At his halfway mark address and press briefing on Thursday, the first thing President Yoon Suk-yeol did was to apologize for recent criticism against him over his connections to an obscure political consultant, Myung Tae-gyun.
대통령이라는 것은 변명하는 자리가 아닙니다. 모든 것이 제 불찰이고 제 부덕의 소치입니다. 국민 여러분께 먼저 죄송하다는 말씀, 진심 어린 사과의 말씀부터 드리고 그리고 이 국정 브리핑을 진행하겠습니다.
This was the biggest issue at hand building up to the briefing. The main opposition, the Democratic Party of Korea, leaked a recorded phone call between then-President-elect Yoon and Myung, during which they discussed the ruling party's candidate selection process ahead of a by-election in 2022. A president or president-elect shouldn't be interfering in party politics. Also, other recordings surfaced that showed First Lady Kim Gun-hee's connection with Myung and her possible involvement in politics. President Yoon denied any wrongdoing but accepted that he should have acted more cautiously when he became a politician. President Yoon did acknowledge that it was his fault for not changing the means of communication for him and his wife after becoming a public figure.
이게 전부 제 책임입니다. 왜냐하면 후보 시절과 또 당선인 시절과 대통령이 됨으로써 이 소통의 방식을 좀 매정하지만 바꿔야 됩니다.
Continuing on domestic politics, President Yoon also faced questions regarding what looks like a fallout with the ruling People Power Party chair Han Dong-hoon, who has been a close confidant of Yoon's since the two's prosecutor days, claiming that a part of that is from the media stirring more conflict. He also said, when both the top office and the ruling party work diligently together to deliver to the public, their relationship will naturally improve over time. President Yoon's answers to foreign policy questions were also highly anticipated as he came into the briefing just a couple hours after his phone call with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Concerns have been rising that the America First policy could impact South Korea's industries, but President Yoon instead showed optimism.
제가 트럼프 대통령이 얘기하는 이러한 정책들은 그건 우리 기업에게 굉장히 좀 불리하지 않냐. 참 걱정이다. 이런 얘기를 하면 걱정하지 마라. 또 그것이 어쨌든 한국 기업에게 크게 피해가 안 가게끔 여러 가지 잘 풀어나갈 것이니까 그런 얘기들을 계속 하더라고요.
He also touched on the war in Ukraine, especially with North Korea's deployment of troops for Russia. He said there are certain things from the deployment that could directly threaten the peace on the Korean peninsula. Therefore, depending on Pyongyang's involvement, he isn't ruling out weapon supply to Ukraine, beginning with defensive weapons. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The U.S. Federal Reserve went ahead with its second consecutive rate cut on Thursday, approving a quarter-point rate cut, while Fed Chair Jerome Powell stressed that the U.S. election outcome has no near-term policy impact. Our Moon Hae-ryun has more.
The Federal Reserve has cut rates once again as inflation and labor market conditions in the United States show signs of easing. On Thursday local time, following the Federal Open Market Committee meeting, Fed policymakers slashed its benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points, bringing it down to the 4.5 to 4.75% range.
We continue to be confident that with an appropriate recalibration of our policy stance, strength in the economy and the labor market can be maintained, with inflation moving sustainably down to 2%.
September's personal consumption expenditures price index, a key measure of inflation, showed that the rise of year-on-year inflation fell to 2.1%, while Fed Chair Jerome Powell commented that job market conditions remain solid. This latest decision from the U.S. Central Bank follows a big rate cut of 0.5 percentage point in September, which was the first significant rate cut since 2020. With the Fed's press conference coming just 2 days after the presidential elections, Powell stated that the results would not factor in their monetary policy decisions in the near future. He also answered questions about the possibility of stepping down if Trump, a known critic of Powell, requested his resignation with a no, and emphasized that he believes the president does not have the legal authority to remove Fed governors from their positions. This latest decision brings the interest rate gap between South Korea and the U.S. back down to 1.5 percentage points once again. The gap had widened to 1.75 percentage points after the Fed's big rate cut in September and the Bank of Korea's smaller rate cut of 25 basis points last month. As the Fed expects to cut rates further, although it's not clear how quickly cuts will come, eyes are on how the BOK will respond. Experts predict that the economic situation here at home will have a greater impact than the Fed's interest rate cut.
What may be a bigger effect on BOK's decision is lower than expected growth rates that we had for the third quarter, which was only 0.1%, rather than 0.5% that the BOK had estimated beforehand.
The BOK is scheduled to hold its final monetary policy meeting of the year at the end of November. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Korea's current account balance remained in the black for the fifth month in a row in September, bolstered by global demand for semiconductors and cars. Our Park Go-na covers the latest findings.
Favorable exports of IT products resulted in a bigger surplus for South Korea. Data from the Bank of Korea on Thursday showed that South Korea's current account balance in September recorded a surplus of over $11.1 billion. This is the fifth straight month that the country has been in the black. September saw the largest surplus in 3 months at almost double that of August. The goods account, which tracks exports and imports of products, logged a surplus and recorded an 18th straight month in the black. Exports in September rose by nearly 10% year-on-year, amounting to over $61.6 billion, while imports recorded $51 billion, resulting in a surplus of around $10.6 billion. Booming shipments of chips and ICT devices were a major factor, both jumping by over 30% year-on-year.
The semiconductor industry is expected to remain in a growth phase until the first half of 2025. Still, we need to wait and see as competition between regions is intensifying.
Shipments of automobiles also soared more than 6%. Hyundai Motor Group, the world's third-largest auto seller, even reported operating profits that outpaced that of the second-largest Volkswagen Group in the third quarter. Amid concerns rising that trade conditions could get worse if President-elect Donald Trump raises tariffs after returning to the White House, one expert has a somewhat brighter prospect.
Trump is putting tariffs on everybody, not just Korea. So everybody will have same problems. I'm not sure if Korea's exports of semiconductors to the United States will fall by very much, because right now, United States has very little semiconductor production facility. Especially for memory chips.
Saying the lack of facilities will not be able to satisfy U.S. companies, he noted that Korea will be able to maintain high exports at least for a year or two, although this might depend on AI demands. Park Go-nu, Arirang News.
And it's not just chips and automobiles. Korean agri-food exports have reached a record high thanks to K-food craze in many countries. The exports of Korean agri-food products from January until October this year were up by almost 9% from a year earlier, reaching some $8.2 billion. This is according to the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs on Tuesday. The export value of processed rice, instant noodles, and snacks recorded $250 million, up by 41.9%. Now, ramen was listed on top among the items. The National Theatre of Korea has unstaged an immersive theatrical experience that energetically includes members of the audience into the performance. Our Lee Eun-hee has this report.
After a 4-year break, the National Theatre of Korea is bringing back its Madangnori performance. Filled with energy and traditional Korean spirit, Madangnori is a traditional Korean performance featuring dance, music, and storytelling, which also shares important social messages.
The audience isn't just here to watch, they're here to participate. They join in just like actors on stage. Honestly speaking, I believe Madangnori is one of the most authentic and successful forms of Korean entertainment.
The charm of Madangnori lies in the connection it creates between the stage and the audience in a circular theater. The Madangnori performance originated from traditional Korean performance, typically held outdoors in a madang, meaning yard or garden, where the audience actively participates. It was later reinterpreted in 1981 with a modern touch, becoming the vibrant performance it is today.
Madangnori has to be choreographed so that the audience can understand the meaning from all 4 sides. The dance, music, and performance need to communicate the same message to everyone, no matter where they're sitting.
The National Theatre of Korea continued the legacy from 2014 to 2020, featuring popular characters like Simcheongi, Chunhyangi, and Nolbu from classic Korean folktales. A blend of satire and humor, the performance offers a clever and entertaining critique of society, making it a genre that can be enjoyed by the whole family, from children to grandparents. In light of the 10th anniversary, this year's production combines the best and most exciting scenes of these beloved stories into one lively, entertaining show. Even more special is the inclusion of the 3 original Madangnori stars who have been performing for 30 years and are honored as living national treasures. The eldest actor Yoon Moon-sik, now 81 years old, reunites with this legendary trio on stage to bring joy and laughter once again. At the press conference held ahead of the show's opening in a few weeks, he expressed his excitement at working with younger talent and hopes that generation will continue to carry on and preserve this tradition for the future.
With the talented young performers we have now, you'll see a much more advanced show than ever before. Come and see for yourselves. I'm sure they'll take what we've started and make it even better. I think this will be my last performance, so I leave it in their hands.
A 54-show run at the National Theatre of Korea's Haneul Theatre from November 29th to January 30th, 2025, offers a nostalgic return for longtime fans and a rare opportunity for younger audiences to experience legendary performers live on stage. As the actors say, all it takes is an open heart. Just come ready to laugh, clap, and be part of the fun. Chunhyangi, Arirang News.
That wraps it up for us for this weekend. Have a wonderful weekend and thanks for watching.